Airlines around the world ground Boeing's flagship 787 Dreamliner. They're worried about the reliability of the sophisticated new jet after a series of scares. It's raising concerns over safety in an industry desperate to reduce costs, and it's a big blow to passenger confidence. Hello there, you're watching Inside Story. I'm Shuilie Ghosh. The 787 Dreamliner is Boeing's vision of the future. A cleaner, greener, cutting-edge aircraft, 20% more fuel efficient than its older rivals. But it's been 3 years late in arriving and plagued by soaring costs. Now the world's Dreamliners have been grounded because of concerns over safety. The 787 aircraft has suffered a string of problems. After a global directive by the US regulator, countries from Japan to Chile to India have taken them out of service, and they won't be allowed to fly again until aviation authorities say they're safe. It's a big blow for the US manufacturer, which still has another 800 Dreamliners to deliver. Here's why the Dreamliners are stuck on the ground. December the 4th, a United Airlines flight made an emergency landing because of an electrical fault. Later that month, Qatar Airways grounded one of its 787s, also because of an electrical problem. January the 7th, an electrical fire broke out on board a Japan Airlines Dreamliner shortly after landing. A day later, Japan Airlines grounded a plane because of a fuel leak. And a day after that, Japan's All Nippon Airlines cancelled a flight because of a brake problem. January the 11th, and ANA reported a crack in a cockpit window. And on Wednesday, an ANA flight made an emergency landing after smoke was seen in the cockpit. A battery problem was suspected. Well, Boeing has defended its aircraft. It says, "We are confident the 787 is safe and we stand behind its overall integrity. We will be taking every necessary step in the coming days to assure our customers and the travelling public of the 787's safety and to return the airplanes to service." Well, let's discuss the issues here. My guests today in London, Simon Calder, Senior Travel Editor for the Independent newspaper. In New Delhi, Harsh Vardhan, an aviation consultant and former managing director of the Indian airline Vayudoot. And joining me via Skype from Manchester is aviation expert Chris Yates. Gentlemen, welcome to the programme. Harsh, let me start with you. Tell me why Air India Dreamliners, 6 of them, have been grounded, because no specific problems have been reported with them, had they?
Well, Air India has followed essentially the directive by the US FAA, because if you really see, Air India had not faced any of these problems which Japan Airlines or United has faced. But in conformity with US directive, they also thought it prudent to ground the aircraft and take all the safety measures which are on the anvil. And we have to still watch and see how soon the FAA comes out with their recommendation or observation on the fate of the fleet.
Do you have any idea how long that will be, how long these planes will be grounded? Because this is having a huge impact on Air India, isn't it?
Well, it is a serious blow, but as you know, Air India has alternate aircrafts in the form of 777s, which they were trying to find usage. So part of that would be deployed to obviate this current problem. But in terms of timing, it is purely dependent on how soon FAA firms up its opinion, because if you really ask me, the problem of the aircraft is essentially localized, confined to the batteries. So I personally feel that it shouldn't take much time for FAA to come out with alternate solutions and Boeing to convince FAA that what steps they propose to take.
Chris, we know that airlines, all the airlines that are using Dreamliners now have grounded them. I think Ethiopian Airlines is the last one to do so.
Absolutely. Within this last couple of hours, confirmed to me that Ethiopian have grounded their 4 Dreamliners because of the instruction from the United States. And obviously that instruction contains a directive that all airlines operating this type of aircraft have to be assured that the battery issue is not an issue for their carriers before the aircraft is allowed back in the sky. And I think just reflecting on what we've just been talking about, yeah, this is an issue that's primarily isolated to the power requirements of the aircraft and the battery specifically, and may not have shown up in the previous flight tests for the aircraft, many of which might well have been much shorter than the commercial flights that the aircraft is carrying out now.
For those of us, Chris, who don't really understand the ins and outs of what constitutes a real problem for the Dreamliner, and we've talked about cracked windows and smoke, but my understanding is it is the battery that is the biggest problem. These are lithium batteries, and the problem with the batteries is that they could cause damage to critical systems. Is that correct?
You're absolutely right. If one of these batteries does not just heat up but catch fire, then obviously the battery is located within the vicinity of an awful lot of those important cables that will run through the body of an aeroplane and could, in fact, jeopardize the aircraft because of that.
And Simon, I mean, the irony is that this new battery technology, I mean, this is one of the cost-saving, energy-saving features that made this Dreamliner the plane of choice for a lot of airlines.
Well, yes, all the launch customers, in particular, all Nippon Airways and Japan Airlines, who have nearly half the 787s in service, all assumed that they would save a small fortune by deploying the 787, much more efficient than any previous aircraft. But at the moment, I'm afraid it's costing them a large fortune. You have 50 of the most advanced, most expensive machines on the planet sitting there idle, and just in the lease costs alone, you're looking at maybe $30,000 or $40,000 per day for every single one of those aircraft. And of course, the cost to Boeing's reputation is incalculable at this stage. And on top of that, of course, it's the long-suffering passengers who are paying the price for the problems that we have been seeing.
Yeah, this is a disaster for Boeing, because the Dreamliner was its hope for the future. But this was supposed to be the way that everyone should be travelling, wasn't it?
Well, it is the first proper 21st century aircraft. All previous jets have been basically using 20th century technology, including the Airbus A380. I would hesitate to say that it's a disaster. It's certainly an embarrassment for Boeing, and this is still by far the most successful new aircraft in terms of advanced orders. And bear in mind that even the Airbus A380 Super Jumbo had a massive problem a couple of years ago in Singapore, when there was an uncontained engine failure, which could have been extremely serious. The Qantas jet was safely landed, everybody got off, but that is a different order of magnitude from the problems we have been seeing with the 787 Dreamliner, serious though they are. OK, you mentioned Airbus there. Let's just have a look at Boeing versus Airbus. Boeing has actually been flying pretty high of late, pulling ahead of its rival Airbus. The US company booked 921 orders for new aircraft in 2012. European company Airbus had orders for 833. Airbus had won the previous year's race by a record margin. Boeing's also taken off when it comes to delivery. 601 new planes reached their destination in 2012 compared to Airbus's 588. That's the first time in 10 years it's been beaten by Boeing. Chris, certainly in terms of the duopoly that we've got for the manufacture of passenger jets, this was a good year for Boeing. So it's not going to be happy at what's happened to its Dreamliners.
Has been a good year for Boeing, of course. This is extremely bad PR for the rollout of a brand new aircraft like the 787. The Boeing share price down 3% yesterday. I would imagine that similarly the share price is going to be impacted again today when trading opens just about now in the United States. So we wait and see precisely what the market reaction is, and then going forward from there, what the reaction from other carriers who've got 787s on order is going to be. What Boeing don't want to see at the moment is any cancellation of those orders going forward.
Do you agree with Simon's point that this is embarrassing for Boeing but not necessarily a disaster?
Yes, I pointed out, and in agreement with Simon, bad PR for Boeing. It's not what they wanted to see. Yes, we did see issues with the A380 when that was introduced.
That's the super jumbo, isn't it? And that also had problems with defects. A crack in the wing, I think, was the main one.
Absolutely, and all of these problems are similar to other aircraft launches over the years. Anytime you do introduce a new aircraft into service, in that first few months, maybe up to a year, 2 years, you will get defects that seem to appear. And yes, we do focus on aviation for all of the obvious reasons. These things tend to get magnified. Whether we're magnifying this beyond the seriousness that it apparently is, I think is wide open to conjecture at the moment.
Harsh, do you think with the problems that we're seeing with the Dreamliner and clearly the problems that Airbus have had with its A380, do airlines like Air India expect compensation when things like this go wrong?
Well, once the first priority right now is to put the aircraft back in air. I agree with Chris. I think there has been overreaction on the part of both Japan safety authorities as well as FAA, because these kind of initial problems happened on all the inductions, and eventually the aircraft starts stabilizing. And we must understand, say, new technology, new breakthrough technology aircraft, it takes time. Now, coming to the compensation, I'm sure all the operators would be working for compensation, but given the fact that the FAA has grounded, I do not know how much Boeing is going to entertain that. But surely there is a case for compensation, because the aircraft has been grounded and it has resulted into total disruption of schedule. More than that, the future operations, future induction of aircrafts, the current orders, if there is any serious problem which emerges, how are you going to replenish it? I think these are the questions which have to be answered in due course of time. But I do not see that it would reach to those situations, because to me, still it is a localized problem. Other problems which have been highlighted are reasonably common with other fleet inductions and even on regular fleet inductions. So I think we have to wait and watch. I hope that the situation will clear in the next 48 hours.
Well, clearly there's been a lot of anger over the recent faults with the Dreamliner. In India, we've had some very tough criticism indeed. Here are the thoughts of a former aviation minister and an opposition leader.
The Dreamliner is just like a Chinese toy, and I have traveled in it several times. I've spoken to the crew also, and they say that even the interior of the plane is like a Chinese sofa and is breaking into pieces. I have heard a lot of complaints about the aircraft.
Dreamliner deal itself was a big, what you can say, suspicious. And the very fact that the planes have not been to the expectations and have to be grounded calls for an immediate inquiry at the highest level as to fix responsibility as to how India has been burdened by these dead machines and how much losses India and Air India as a whole have suffered.
Simon, it's interesting that reaction to this bright new plane of the future is so mixed. I mean, people who've travelled on it seem to say, either, oh, it's absolutely fantastic, and they rave about it, and other people like that, the former aviation minister, saying it's tiny and it's like a Chinese toy.
Well, no, I think the passengers of the future, and let's hope and trust that this is just a grounding that lasts maybe for a few days or weeks rather than stretching into months or years. I think it is the first aircraft that has properly been designed for passenger comfort. everything about it looks good. From the windows, much larger than on ordinary aircraft. There's a lot more space to stow your cabin baggage, increasingly important, of course, these days. And then passenger comfort is very much at the top of the list. For example, the pressurization in the cabin is at a higher pressure than it is on many other jets. And the idea is that if you're on a very long flight, then you'll feel a lot better when you get off. And of course, the great thing about it, and its absolute prime virtue, is its economy. It uses perhaps 15% less fuel than comparable aircraft per passenger per kilometre. It also, on top of that, is able to fly much further, and so that means it's going to open new routes. And Ethiopian Airlines, for example, which has been using it very, very successfully on the route from Addis Ababa to Toronto, is going to be appalled that it can't fly that route because it was performing very well indeed for the airline. It is a great airline.
I mean, clearly there's a lot of thought gone into its design and manufacture, but do the manufacturers, do Boeing, make significant profits on this plane, or is there a battle to price it so cheaply that they're not actually making their money back just yet?
Oh no, I think they will be looking upon this as maybe the 777, which is effectively the aircraft at the moment that's paying the rent in the very expensive business of aviation aircraft manufacture. They will look upon this as their bright hope for the future. It will, they hope, will be very profitable indeed, with close on 1,000 on order. And of course, not all those orders may be fulfilled. We've already seen, for example, Monarch in the UK cancelling its order for Dreamliners because, as you rightly said at the start, the thing arrived 3 years late, and many airlines are just thinking, well, we don't really want to wait. We certainly don't want an aircraft which is not going to perform properly and safely, and they may well be wandering back to Airbus to say, let's have another look at your Airbus A350 XWB, which is the brave new hope from Toulouse, from the Airbus factory there.
Chris, what's happened to that A350? I mean, that's the Airbus's equivalent to the Dreamliner, but it's not due till 2014, is it?
It's not due. It is in development, and with every new aircraft development, it takes time to bring a concept through to market for a whole variety of reasons, not just the construction, the design of the aircraft itself, but through that whole certification process as well. And if I may, just to pick up on something that Simon said a few moments ago, we've already identified that this is bad news for Boeing in terms of their PR. But going forward from here, the big fear must be for Boeing that if any other carriers cancel orders for the 787, then that's going to be extraordinarily bad news. And just to reflect on the compensation aspect as well, a number of airlines who operate this aircraft have said to me that they are considering the approach to Boeing to compensate for the loss of this aircraft in operations currently and the impact that it's having on their business.
Harsh, do you agree that airlines will now be looking at future orders of Dreamliners and perhaps cancelling them because of the delays and because of the current problems?
Well, I think unless Boeing comes out with a quick fix of this problem, and if this issue drags on beyond 2 to 3 weeks, that scenario would take place. But I do believe that the aircraft has been duly tested, and these are isolated issues. So I have full faith in resolving the crisis. As far as the statement made by Indian minister and other people are concerned, I think.
But what a lot of people, Harsh, won't understand,
statement.
what a lot of passengers won't understand, is how there could be these issues, localised or not, with a plane that was 3 years late in delivering. Why weren't these problems ironed out during the production stage?
When the production or the testing phase takes place, there is a different working environment. When the aircraft is put in service and to commercial service, the extensive usage and the exposure to real life environment does come out with new problems. Every operator and every aircraft has faced those problems. There is nothing new with it. So I don't see such a negative sentiment for Boeing. I personally believe it should resolve this issue. But if the crisis goes beyond 2 to 3 weeks and some new faults develop or emerge, then it is going to be a nightmare for Boeing as well as the operators, and they can see the cancellation of orders off the shelf.
Let's just have a look at some reaction that we've been getting in on Facebook to the issue of the Dreamliners being grounded. David Koopman says, safety first. There cannot be a margin of error in the crowded skies. Passenger safety cannot be compromised. Jean-Sébastien Villeneuve says Boeing had a chance to prove they could do better than Airbus. It looks like they failed. And Mirza Angelic says the fact that the delivery has been delayed to ensure high quality and safety makes me doubt that that factor was the reason for the delay. I think they were just delayed and trying to rush. Chris, how does Boeing counter that perception that maybe safety has been compromised by cost issues, by trying to rush it out because there had been so many delays?
I don't believe that we're talking about safety compromised on cost alone. This is a very complex aircraft, and any new aircraft increases the complexity, but the Dreamliner is extraordinarily complex, much of it constructed in modular fashion, and many of the sub-assemblies within the body of the Dreamliner actually installed when each of those modules is being built. So effectively the whole thing is stitched together. Now, when we get through the investigation as to the cause of these issues, it may well be that the problem has been generated somewhere along that supply line rather than Boeing itself.
Wasn't there some criticism that it had
been
outsourced some of the manufacturing, and why would it do that for something that is so
precisely,
complex?
That's what we're talking about essentially. We're talking about a modular design. It has outsourced chunks of the aircraft with the sub-assemblies for those chunks, and then the whole thing brought together in the plant in Everett. That, to my mind, might well have contributed to the issues that the aircraft is having at the moment, and that may well be reflected in the investigation that's being carried out in the United States into the manufacturing process for this new aircraft.
I see you nodding, Simon. Do you agree? Could that be at the root of it, that this very complex design was actually outsourced?
Well, Boeing was trying all kinds of new and exciting and potentially cost-saving initiatives with the 787, and as Chris indicates, it could have become rather unstuck. And of course, the repercussions just in the short term, while we're waiting for the problem to be solved, are remarkable for the airlines. Now, if you're a relatively large airline such as United in the United States, which is mostly deploying the 787s on domestic routes, you've got a fair amount of flexibility in your fleet. For instance, some of today's departures, they are putting a narrow-bodied 737 on instead of the 787. However, for an airline such as Qatar Airways, which made a fantastic song and dance about being the very first scheduled carrier on the 787 in and out of Heathrow Airport here in London, it's rather tricky because they put a lot of store in this aircraft. They're going to have to replace it. And many passengers, for example, on the kind of route that the Dreamliner was designed for, from Tokyo to San Diego, just finding that the flights have been cancelled. No replacement services at all, and they will probably have to operate via Los Angeles or somewhere else, and making it a much longer, a much more stressful journey than the Dreamliner was supposed to deliver.
OK, gentlemen, we have flown to the end of the programme. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Thanks to my guests Simon Calder, Harsh Vardhan and Chris Yates. And if you want to get in touch with your thoughts about today's programme, you can tweet me at HackHound, or you can send an email to insidestory@aljazeera.net. But for the moment, from me, Shuilie Ghosh. Bye for now.